In the outskirts of an abandoned industrial town stood the old Ironworks Factory, a hulking relic of a bygone era. The factory had been shut down for decades, its windows shattered and its machinery rusted and silent. Locals whispered about strange occurrences and ghostly apparitions, claiming the factory was haunted by the Forsaken Wraith, a malevolent spirit said to be the vengeful ghost of a worker who perished in a tragic accident. One gloomy evening, Mark, an urban explorer and thrill-seeker, decided to investigate the factory for himself. Equipped with his camera, a torchlight, and a sense of adventure, he made his way to the crumbling building as the sun began to set. As Mark stepped through the rusted gates, the air grew colder and a sense of foreboding settled over him. The torchlight cast long, flickering shadows on the walls, revealing faded safety posters and abandoned machinery covered in dust and cobwebs. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant sound of dripping water and the occasional creak of settling metal. And Mark ventured deeper into the factory, his footsteps echoing in the vast, empty space. He entered the main production hall, where the massive furnaces and conveyor belts stood like silent sentinels of a forgotten time. As he raised his torchlight to get a better view, he heard it, a faint, rhythmic tapping that seemed to come from the darkness beyond. Curiosity piqued, Mark followed the sound, his pulse quickening. The tapping grew louder, leading him to a stairwell that descended into the basement. He hesitated for a moment, then descended, the cold air growing even more frigid with each step. The basement was a maze of corridors and storage rooms, filled with shadows that seemed to move just out of sight. As he explored, Mark noticed a strange glow emanating from one of the rooms. He approached cautiously, peering inside. The room was filled with old equipment and machinery, but at its center stood an ancient iron furnace. The glow came from within, casting an eerie light on the walls. And Mark's breath caught in his throat as he saw ghostly figures materialize around the furnace, their forms translucent and flickering like candle flames. They were the spectral remnants of the factory workers, their faces twisted in agony and despair. The rhythmic tapping he had heard was now a cacophony of ghostly whispers and the clanging of phantom hammers. Before he could react, the furnace roared to life, its flames burning with a ghastly green light. The ghostly figures turned their hollow eyes towards Mark, their expressions filled with sorrow and anger. One of the spirits, a foreman by the look of his tattered uniform, stepped forward, his voice a chilling echo. "You should not have come here," the spirit intoned. "We are bound to this place, forever tormented by the fire that claimed us. Now, you too will join us in our eternal suffering." The ghostly figures surged forward, their icy hands reaching out to grasp Mark. He panicked and tried to run, but the spirits quickly surrounded him, their touch draining his warmth and strength. The foreman's face twisted into a mask of fury, his eyes burning with an intense, vengeful fire, his brows furrowed deeply, and his mouth contorted into a snarling grimace, exposing teeth clenched in rage. The sheer intensity of the foreman's anger was palpable, a seething wrath that seemed to reach out and consume Mark as he was pulled towards the furnace. Against all odds, Mark managed to break free. Stumbling through the maze of corridors, he emerged into the night, drenched in sweat and shivering with cold. His torchlight had long since gone out, leaving him to navigate by sheer instinct. He fled the factory, never looking back, his mind a whirl of fear and confusion. And days later, Mark was found wandering the streets of the town, his eyes wild and vacant, muttering incoherently about the ghosts and the green flames. He clutched his camera, but the memory card was corrupted, the images nothing more than distorted, terrifying blurs. Mark was committed to a psychiatric hospital, his mind shattered by the horrors he had witnessed. He would spend his days in a padded room, drawing frantic sketches of the ghostly figures and the glowing furnace, his voice a constant whisper of the Forsaken Wraith and the tragedy that bound their souls to the Ironworks Factory. The factory remained a place of fear and mystery, its halls echoing with the whispers of the past, and on stormy nights the ghostly tapping and distant cries of the workers could still be heard, a chilling reminder of the Forsaken Wraith that had driven Mark to madness and left the Ironworks Factory forever haunted.